Hi there and welcome back to the channel. My name is Luisa, but everyone calls me Lu, and this is episode 5 of the podcast where I share about everything when it comes to my knitting journey. I created this YouTube channel hoping to make some knitting friends and connect with people who share the same passion for knitting as I do. Anyway, spring is finally here. I mean, it has been for a couple of weeks now, but it finally feels like spring, so I'm really excited to be finishing up my last 2 sweater projects that I cast on during the winter. And a lot has happened since the last knitting update 2 weeks ago, so let's jump right into it. Today I have 2 almost finished sweater projects, my new cardigan cast on, and I would also really like your help choosing my next cast on because I simply cannot make up my mind. So, I'm not wearing any hand knits today actually, this is just a store-bought sweater that I've had for a couple of years now, so let's jump right into my works in progress. So the first project I like to share today is my hoodie, because if I'm being honest, I have to prepare myself mentally before I talk about my cable project, because let me tell you, it has been a dramatic week, very eventful, but we get to that in a minute. Let's start with the easy project first. So this is the Traveler hoodie by Andrea Mowry. It is knitted bottom up with sharp shoulders. You can either knit a hood or a crow neck. I chose to knit the hood. It was the thing that attracted me the most to start this project. And I am knitting size 3, which is supposed to give me 12 centimeters of positive ease. The yarn I'm using for this project is Holst Garn Supersoft in the colorway Jasper held double, which is this beautiful dark red shade that I love so much. Now, when we last talked about this project, I had just finished knitting the hood, so since then I blocked it and I still like it. I really like the fit, the size, the fabric, the weight of it, the way it hangs in my back, so the hood is perfect. And after that I've already picked up stitches to knit the sleeves, finished the first sleeve, and I am about halfway through my second sleeve. So now when it comes to the sleeves, the pattern advises you to be mindful of your gauge because you're knitting a smaller circumference, so sometimes your gauge may vary when it compared to the gauge of the body fabric. So I checked my gauge, I didn't have any problems with that, so I just used the same gauge, the same needle size I use for the body, which is a 4.5 millimeter. The pattern only instructs you to place the decrease rounds every couple of centimeters or so. So I had to do a little bit of math to figure out what that meant in terms of number of rows I had to knit between each decrease to space them evenly throughout my sleeves. And they are marked by these stitch markers here, and the ones missing I've already switched to my second sleeve. I did the exact same number of decreases as the pattern calls for, so I basically knit the sleeve as the pattern suggests. The only thing I did differently was I added 4 centimeters to the length of the sleeve after I was done with the decreases. So this is my last decrease here. I added 4 centimeters of length, and I also blocked my sleeve after I was done knitting the last decrease. I always like to do this before I start knitting the cuff, because I find that usually the sleeve fabric grows quite a bit, even if the body does not grow with blocking, but I find that the sleeves usually do. So I really like to block before I knit the cuffs to make sure I have the exact length that I am aiming for. And this happened with this sleeve also. It grew 3 centimeters, so on top of that 3 centimeter growth, I added 4 centimeters to the sleeves, and then I started with the 2x2 rib for the cuff. Now I always change to a smaller needle size when I'm knitting the cuff, but I usually do this before I knit the last row of the sleeve. I just find it gives a nicer transition between the sleeve fabric and the cuff, so I do this every time I'm switching to any kind of fabric, either sleeves or body, it doesn't matter, and I am starting to knit a 1x2 rib or 2x2 rib, any kind of ribbing. And I did this also here, and I really like the final look of it. And then I switched to my 2x2 ribbing. I found that when I was knitting the ribbing on the body, the wrong side of my ribbing looked neater, better than the right side, so I decided to flip it inside out and use the wrong side as the right side. And I did the exact same thing when I was knitting the cuff. So when I was done knitting the last row of the sleeves, I just turned my work and started working on the wrong side basically, to knit the cuff inside out. And I'm really happy that I did that, because now my right side really looks better. And after I was done knitting the cuff, I just did a tubular bind off and everything works out fine, just like the pattern suggests. Other than that, I don't think I've made any modifications to the sleeves other than the length. Like I said, I really like the fit of my sleeve. It is not oversized. It is not, I don't have a lot of fabric when you compare to the circumference of my arm. It is just a little bit bigger than my arm, which I really like. I don't like really oversized sleeves because I find it tricky to wear a coat over bigger sleeves. So I really like the fit of it. Just half of it has been blocked, so I still have to block this, and I will do after I finish my second sleeve. I would have been able to finish my second sleeve, if it weren't for the whole saga with the Belle Sebastian Pullover, the cable project. So this is my traveler hoodie so far, and now let's talk about the elephant in the room. So, this is the Belle Sebastian Pullover by Andrea Mowry. It is knitted... No! This is the Belle Sebastian Pullover by Sari Nordlund. It is knitted top down with drop shoulders. I am knitting mine with satin sleeves, but we'll get to that in a second. This pattern features cable and moss stitch going down the side of the body and sleeves. I am knitting size 3, which is supposed to give me 15 centimeters of positive ease. Had I hit gauge? I thought I did, but apparently I didn't, because when I tried this on, it fits a little bit tighter than what I expect 15 centimeters of positive ease to fit. So I measured it, and now I think I have like 10 centimeters of positive ease, because apparently I'm not engaged, but story of my life, right? So the yarn I chose to knit this project with is Gepard Garn Woolia in the colorway 106 Oat Grey, which is this beautiful light gray shade I have here. Now, when I last talked about this project, I was just about done with the body. So since then, I finished working on the chart for the body, knitted a 1x1 rib, blocked it to make sure it stretched out as much as it would possibly go. So I wanted the cables to bloom and everything before I knit the Italian bind off, so that's what I did. I really like doing Italian bind offs. I think maybe this is a controversial knitting opinion, but I really love the process of knitting a Italian bind off. I find it really relaxing, so that's what I did here also. So the next step was to pick up stitches and knit the sleeves, but I wanted to knit a satin sleeves. For that I had to knit a sleeve cap, which is just this extra fabric here that you basically work short rows the whole time to get the extra fabric here until you're able to join and work in the round, just like a regular drop shoulder sleeve. So I've never done any sort of satin sleeve, short row for the sleeves type of situation before. So I I watched a lot of videos, read a lot about it, watched a lot of tutorials, and I think I understood the basic idea of what I was supposed to do. So after that, I looked at the pattern photos and felt like the sleeves was just a little bit too tight of a fit. They looked like a sausage casing, if I'm being honest. And I read a few project pages. People were saying they went up even 2 sizes to knit the sleeves because of that. And I don't like tight fitting sleeves. I don't like them to be too oversized, but I don't like a tight fitting sleeve. And so I decided to follow the other people's suggestions, and I went up 2 sizes to knit the sleeves. So the body I've knitted on a I knitted size 3, and the sleeves I am knitting size 5. But let's talk about the satin sleeve process, because this is where the drama began. So once I decided on a size, I understood the whole process or the general idea of it. I decided to pick up stitches and knit my sleeves. The sleeve cap. So basically what I did here is, well, let's talk first about my many tries of knitting this sleeve cap, because this is actually my 6th try. I've knitted 5 failed attempts before this one. So let's talk about this process first, because, well, it is very dramatic. I picked up stitches to knit the first sleeve cap, and you have to do short rows on each side of the sleeve to get this extra fabric here, right? So at first I got confused when I was doing I chose to do German short rows is my preferred method for short rows. So I got confused with the German short rows and the moss stitch section that you have on each side of the sleeve. I didn't know if I was supposed to knit a purl or knit stitch. I just got really confused. I decided to frog it, started again. This happened 2 times, and then I was doing something wrong with the German short rows because this seam here between the sleeve cap and the body, I didn't like it. It looked weird. Frogged it again, and then I couldn't get the 2 sides of my German short rows, so the left and wrong side, to look the same. It was weird. Once again, frogged it, and then I needed the sleeve cap for a 5th time. I thought I had figured it all out. It was good. I needed the whole sleeve cap, tried it on, was really happy with it, and then I looked in the mirror and saw that the cables here, the sleeve cables, weren't centered with my arm. They looked to be a little bit more to the left than to the right, the exact middle of my arm. So I went back to the pattern, read it, everything 10 more times to make sure I did everything right. And I did. Initially I did, at the time at least, because the pattern tells you to knit a certain number of stitches before you start with the sleeve chart. So I did that, and the chart didn't look to be in the middle. And basically what I concluded from all of that was the pattern tells you the pattern places the sleeve chart 1 stitch to the left or to the right, now I can remember, but it's not exactly in the middle of the number of stitches you have for the sleeves. I don't want to say the numbers because this is a paid for pattern, but I think that's why the sleeve cables don't look to be in the exact middle of the sleeves. And I don't think you notice this in the pattern because it is a dropped shoulder construction, so the sleeve cables begin about here. So you can't actually notice if the cables are 1 stitch to the left or to the right. But here when I'm knitting a satin sleeve, so my cables begin at the edge of my shoulder, you can really see if it's not centered. So I had to do a little bit of a rearranging of the stitches to make it look like this. Now I'm really happy with the position of the sleeve cables. So let's talk about all the stitch markers because they're really important. So from what I understood by watching a lot of video tutorials on sleeve caps, I had a total number of stitches I had for the sleeves that I was supposed to pick up around the entire armhole. And then I was supposed to subtract the number of underarm stitches that I had. In this case, I have 5 because I made a modification to the body and cast on more stitches than what the pattern calls for on each side of the body. To then the remaining stitches, I was supposed to divide them into thirds, place stitch markers to separate each section. So the blue and pink stitch markers would be the stitches between these 2 markers would be my starting point, to which point I was supposed to start short rowing, incorporating each stitch to the left of the blue marker and the right of the pink marker until I reached the 2 green stitch markers here in the bottom. So that's what I did, but I didn't exactly divide my stitches into thirds because of this sleeve chart. So first, I decided when I would be starting my sleeve chart to make sure it was centered with my shoulder, with my arm. So now I have 1 stitch more on the right side than I do on the left side to make sure it is centered. So I placed the middle point of the number of stitches I had for my sleeves with the center stitch here on the sleeve chart. So that's how I did this whole rearranging of stitches. Now, like I said, I don't have exactly the same number of stitches in each of these 3 sections here because of the sleeve chart. So I decided to place my starting point, which is between the blue and pink stitch markers. I placed them right after the last cable on each side of the sleeve chart. So the 2 purl stitches I have on the edge, on each edge of the sleeve chart, they already are incorporated by the short rows. So the first short row I did on each side of the chart was this first purl stitch here on the sleeve chart also. So in total I did 21, if I'm not mistaken, short rows on each side, but I didn't pick up stitches like the conventional way, because if I were to do that, then I would pick up stitches here, knit a half a row, let's say, until I reached the pink stitch marker, to then start short rowing between the blue and green and the pink and green. So if I were to do that, I would be doing all the crossings for the sleeves, for the cables on the wrong side. So I would be crossing the stitches and purling. I didn't want to do that because I was afraid of tension issues and my cables would look a bit wonky because I would be purling the stitches. So I didn't want to do that either. I ultimately decided to pick up stitches starting at the pink marker here. Picked up stitches clockwise until I reached the pink marker again. So then my first row between the blue and pink markers would be on the wrong side, and therefore all my cable crossings, the cable rows, would be done on the right side. But because of that, when I reached the end of my short rows here, the green markers, my last short row was knitted on the wrong side. So just like I am now, I just finished the last of my short rows, so I knitted on the wrong side. That's why my yarn is coming from the left side here. So what I did on the other sleeve that I am going to be doing for this sleeve also is I decided to cut my yarn here and then reattach it at the middle of my underarm stitches. So, and place a beginning of round stitch marker here, beginning of round marker here, just like the pattern suggests, to then knit my sleeves on the right side in the round, just like the pattern suggests, because if I were to just continue working in the round with the yarn I have here without reattaching it, I would be knitting my sleeves on the wrong side, so from the inside out, and I didn't want to do that. So that's what I landed on. That's how I got to this first sleeve here. So I just decided, once my first sleeve cap was done, it was this one here. I did it a 6th time, like I said, tried it on, and I felt like it was a little bit tight still. So I got pretty frustrated because it was my 6th try knitting the sleeves, and I didn't want to frog it and knit a bigger size. So I would be knitting 3 sizes up, so I didn't want to do that. I was already really tired of knitting a sleeve cap. So I ultimately decided to block it and see if it would grow any centimeter with blocking, and it did. So now I think I have a good sleeve, so I'm fine with this, the fit of this sleeve. It is still a little bit tighter than what I would like, but it fits. It works just fine. If I were to do this again, maybe I will go up a size, another size, so size 6. But for now, I think it works just fine. But the pattern only suggests to knit just a few decreases along the sleeves. So I think I would be skipping these increases altogether, and I will knit straight sleeves until the cuffs, because I don't want to have it any tighter than it already is. I mean, it's not tight, but it feels like I have just a couple of centimeters of positive ease. And I would prefer to have a little bit more of positive ease, but it is what it is. So I like the fit of it. I will continue working on this. So I decided to go ahead and knit the second sleeve cap before I forgot what I did. So that's what I did here. So this sleeve cap hasn't been blocked. I still have to cut the yarn, reattach it, and start working around. So that's why the sleeves don't look the same. This one is unblocked, the other one is blocked. So there you go. Now, when I was working on the body, you have this twisted stitch here going down both sides of the body, and on each side of this twisted knit stitch there's a purl stitch. And when I was working on the body, I decided to twist those two purl stitches as well, because I felt like they were a little bit wonky, a little bit gappy. So I decided to twist those to close this gap. But I don't have this problem for now I don't have this problem when I'm working on the sleeve. So I just decided to knit the two knit stitches, the two purl stitches, like the regular way, without any twisting or anything. So that's it. That's my Belle Sebastian Pullover so far. I'm happy with it. I like the whole look of it. I'm really happy that I went for a satin sleeve instead of drop shoulder. I think it's just what I was expecting, and I really prefer the look of the sleeve cables beginning at the edge of the shoulder here instead of in the middle of my arm. So I really like this project. Now that the sleeve cap is done, it's just smooth sailing until I finish the sleeve, because it's just straight in the round without any decreases. So yeah. So this is my Belle Sebastian Pullover so far. I really hope to have a finished object before the next podcast. So now let's talk about the last work in progress of today's video, which is my Daily Stripes cardigan. The Daily Stripes cardigan by Kika. This is what I have so far. It's not much to show you, so I'm just going to hold it like that because I can't put it on Margot yet, because it's still missing one of the shoulders. So this is a pattern by Kika. Like I said, it is knitted top down with drop shoulders. It is a all over garden stitch project. I am knitting size large, which is supposed to give me around 12 centimeters of positive ease. The needles I'm using for this project is a 4.5 millimeters, because this pattern calls for one strand of worsted and one strand of mohair, one strand of lace weight yarn. I'm just using one strand of worsted, so I'm a little bit off gauge. That's why I'm using 4.5 millimeters. But the yarn I'm using is unspun. It is Ístex Plötulopi in the colorway 1038 Ivory Beige and 1426 Dark Amber Heather. I really love this orange one. It is, like the name suggests, a heathered effect. So I really like this. It is my first time working with unspun. Like I said previously, I don't know if it's the right yarn for the project or the best yarn. Probably not, but it was at a good price point. It was accessible. It got to me really quick. So I like the price, I like the color, so here we are. Now, when it comes to my progress, since we last talked about this project, I was able to finish the back panel. So the instructions for the back panel are in centimeters. So the fact that I was off gauge didn't really matter, because I just knitted until I got to the same length as the pattern suggested. And then I picked up stitches to knit the first front here, the right front. Now, because I'm off gauge, I'm off row and stitch gauge. So I'm knitting size L, size large, to compensate for my difference in stitch gauge. Now when it comes to row gauge, I had to do a little bit of math when I was knitting the front panel here, because the instructions for this front shoulder are in rows. Actually, they are not in centimeters, they are in number of rows. So I had to do a little bit of math to figure out how many rows I had to add to my instructions, let's call it that, to make sure that I would end up with the same length of this front shoulder here as the pattern calls for, as the pattern suggested. So ultimately I decided I had to knit 12 more rows to make sure I got to the same length. So that's what I did. These stitch markers here, the places I added 2 extra rows to make sure it was evenly spaced throughout the panel. So yeah, now I think I got things looking just right. I am a little bit unsure when it comes to the fit, because I needed this exactly to pattern when it comes to the length. So things should work out, but if you place them, so if you hold it like this, matching the 2 beige stripes here, and you hold it like the back panel, you can see that the neck part of the back panel here, it folds to the front. So I don't know. I mean, I'm just following the pattern when it comes to the length, and I will continue to do so until at least I join front and back and I am able to try it on properly to see how the fit is looking. But I am a little bit unsure when it comes to this part here. I don't want this to come up on my neck because it would just look weird and uncomfortable. But I don't know. I will trust the pattern. Oh, wait, grab my necklace here. I will trust the pattern. This is not the first time I'm knitting a pattern by this designer. I trust the designer. So I'm just going to keep working as the pattern instructs you to, and we'll see where that gets me. So this is my Daily Stripes cardigan so far. I am really liking this project. I'm really loving to work with unspun yarn. I do have to be a little bit more careful when I pick it up and put it down every time. I don't work it when I don't work on this project when I'm sitting on the couch or in bed or anything like that. I just work on this when I am sitting by my desk, when I have all my yarns laid on the desk, on a flat and safe space, just to make sure I don't pull this yarn and break it and anything. I'm trying to be really careful on how I handle the yarn, because the yarn suggested maybe I should knit with 2 strands or even 3 strands to make it more, well, stronger, but I'm just knitting single-stranded, so yeah, we'll see. But I really like the fabric, I like the feel of it. It's not soft, but I really like the hairiness of it, the fuzziness of this yarn. I think I can show you this, but I really like this, the fuzziness of it. It gives the look of a mohair, but I'm not knitting with mohair. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not evenly as soft as mohair, but I think it gives the same fuzziness of the mohair to a certain amount. So I really like that, and I'm loving this project so far. I like the construction, I love the garter stitch, it's very relaxing. I like the designer, so I'm fine with this project. And this is my Daily Stripes cardigan so far. I mean, we'll see if I have joined in the round. I mean, joined front and back before next episode. But I think I will. I definitely will. It's just a couple of rows here. So yeah, I'll definitely have joined in the front and back before next episode. So I'm really happy to have this on my needles. And I'm really excited to try this on once I join front and back. Now, this is where I want to talk about my next cast on, because like you saw, I am just about finished with my 2 sweater projects, so I would really like to cast something new. I would really like to cast on something from my spring knitting plans video, and I've been thinking about that a lot, but I simply cannot make up my mind. So I can't decide if I want to knit a sweater while it's still not as hot as it will be by the end of the season, but I am knitting sweaters. I'm almost done with 2 sweaters, so maybe I want to cast on something different, like a tee, to have it ready when it gets really hot outside. But maybe I want to knit something else. I mean, I have something that I would like to knit as a present for someone that I'm thinking about, and that would be a shawl, so maybe I want to get a start on that. I don't know, I cannot make up my mind, so I thought I would ask you guys and see what you guys think and give me ideas and suggestions. So let me get the yarn and we can talk about it. So, like I was saying, my first idea was to cast on a sweater, but I don't know if I want to work on a sweater right now, but if I wait until the end of the season, then it will be maybe too hot to work on a sweater. So I don't know. I thought about casting on the Clematis sweater, I think it's called. I don't know if it's sweater or blouse. I think it's sweater. The one with the button band going diagonally down the front. And I already have the yarn for this project. I will use... Which yarn is this? Malabrigo sock in the colorway 343. Yeah, 343 Legend. It is this beautiful yarn here. I don't even know how to describe this color, so I will just hold it so you can see. Like I said, this is Malabrigo sock in the colorway 343 Legend. So this yarn is so soft. It's the softest yarn I've ever had in my hands. It is also this will be also my first time working with hand-dyed yarn. I think this is hand-dyed. I'm almost certain it is hand-dyed, but yeah. So I don't know if all hand-dyed yarns are this soft, but I really like this. But this yarn is also so smelly that I just put it over there to let it air a little bit for a few days before I work on it. But I'm getting off topic. So I was thinking about casting on the Clematis sweater, but because of the button band, you basically work on it flat, so it would be like working on a cardigan. I don't know if I want to do that because I already have a cardigan on my needles right now. I don't know if I want to have two cardigans on my needles at the same time. So I don't know. Maybe I won't cast this on right now. So I thought maybe I would get ahead and start the gift knit. That would be a shawl. The yarn I'm thinking about using for this project is just a basic yarn. I've never worked with this yarn before, but I've heard really good things about it. This is Fil Color Vita in the colorway 807. It is a purpley pink or something like that. I really like this color. I've never worked with it, but it's really soft. This is just a sock yarn, I think. It is 80% wool and 20% nylon. I don't know if I said this, but this Malabrigo sock is 100% wool, maybe? Yeah, it's 100% merino wash wool. This is 100% superwash merino wool. And the Fil Color Vita is just sock yarn. But I'm thinking about knitting a shawl. It is a gift knit. I don't want to worry about size being too long, short, tight, big. So I thought maybe a shawl would be nice. I don't know if I want to work on a shawl right now because it's getting hot outside, but at the same time there is a gift knit. So I'm not really worried about the season when it comes to gift knits. So yeah, maybe I will work on the shawl. Maybe I will cast on the Clematis sweater, or maybe it would be best if I started on the sweater project before it gets too hot outside. Or maybe I want to work on a tee, like the Stromboli tee or the Skyline Tee that I talked about in my spring knitting plans video. So I can have that ready to go and ready to wear when it gets really hot outside. I don't know. If you guys could send me your suggestions and your thoughts, I would really appreciate, because I simply cannot make up my mind. So I thought I would ask you guys for your opinion. Alright, so I think that's all I have for you today when it comes to my knitting projects and ideas, or maybe indecisions. So thank you so much for spending some time with me today. I would love to know what's on your needles right now, so feel free to leave a comment below. And if you enjoyed this little knitting catch-up, feel free to give it a thumbs up. It really helps the channel grow. And if you're new here, I would love to have you stick around and subscribe for more future cozy knitting updates. See you next time. Bye!